Hey guys, what's up? This is Francisco with Valoreso Capital, and I'm gonna go through the weekly watch list. So as always, we start by looking at the Nasdaq Composite, right? The IXIC here, and what we mentioned last week, we mentioned the market jumping here into a declining 21 EMA. We mentioned that we should be careful about this 3 week 3 day rally into a declining 21 EMA, since we are below a declining 50 DMA and below a declining 21 EMA. So any rally to this moving average is suspect of more sellers coming in and bringing price back down. So as you can see, the Nasdaq Composite we continue to have a sell signal that is active. We continue to have bearish momentum. We continue to have a squeeze that is firing short. So I will not be surprised if the Nasdaq Composite perhaps rallies into this declining 8 exponential moving average and then takes out this low. So be aware of that. I think that the market is not signaling any bottom patterns yet, and the pattern of least resistance continue to be to the downside. So let's move quickly to the other indexes, right? We have the NQ here, which is the QQQ, which is the Nasdaq 100 futures, or some people use the QQQ. And we can see the same thing, right? We got rejected at a declining 21 exponential moving average, and we have a squeeze that is firing short, and we also have bearish momentum with no selling exhaustion signals yet. So I think there's a high probability for the Nasdaq, for the NQ to take out this low and continues to move lower and perhaps test the 15,000 level again. So be aware of that as well. Moving forward here through the ES, which is the S&P 500 mini contracts. And we can see the same thing, right? We have a sell signal, we have a squeeze that is pointing lower, we have neutral momentum coming out of bearish momentum, neutral momentum coming out of bullish momentum, and we have a fail, right? We can kind of have this bull trap here in which we pop above the 21 EMA, but then we have this bearish engulfing candle that closes below the 50, and now we have this bearish cross of the 8 and the 21 exponential moving averages. So any rally up here continues to be suspect. This is resistant at the moment, and my indicators are telling me that there's a high probability that we take out this low and move to test out this low right here. So be aware of that as well. And then let's move into the RTY here, right, which is the IWM future contracts, and we can see that we have this bottoming pattern here. We have these head and shoulders, right? We have the fail move into the declining 50 DMA, and now we have the fail move into the declining 21 EMA, right? We have the bearish cross of the 8 and the 21 exponential moving averages, and we have a sell signal that continues to be active. We have the squeeze that is pointing lower, and we don't have any selling exhaustion signals. So I think there's a high probability that the RTY is going to take out this low and continue moving lower. So be aware of that as well. So now let's move into some of the past week names that were on watch, right? We have Pfizer here, right? We mentioned Pfizer on this day right here, and we said that Pfizer was looking good, right, for a DTL move above this level. However, we never got a trigger, right? And remember, the trigger that we're looking for is a transition from bearish momentum into neutral momentum, which is basically this line turning yellow before price moving higher. And also we have a squeeze that continues to point lower, and now we have the squeeze firing lower. So I think there's a high probability that Pfizer is going to take out this low right here and perhaps move into these pivots down here. So, right, no trigger, no trade. And then we have Tesla, right? And we mentioned Tesla. We mentioned Tesla on this day right here, right? We mentioned Tesla on this day right here, and the next day that came true, we have that continuation. And if you were quick to take your profits at the 0618 level, that was a valid trade. However, given that the market rallied into a declining 21 DMA, right? And we're talking about the QQQ or the Nasdaq Composite, right? Tesla just followed suit, right? Tesla rallied into this level right here, and then the next day Tesla just sold off with the market. So as for now, right, we can see that we still have bullish momentum, but however the squeeze is pointing lower and Tesla is below a 21 EMA. So perhaps we get a run into earnings, but for now Tesla is not a high probability trade to the upside. And now let's move into gold, right? We mentioned gold on this day right here, and as you can see, gold continues to flag here, right? We have this move higher, we have price above the 21 EMA, we have bullish momentum. However, the squeeze is pointing lower, so we don't have a full alignment on my indicators. So the setup continues to be valid. However, there's a high probability. However, there's not right. There is a high probability for a move higher, but we don't have every all of my indicators aligned for me to take a for me to suggest a high probability trade into this level right here. So continue to look at gold, see if we continue to form here, look for this momentum to move higher, and then perhaps we will get that move into 1850 that we're looking for. And then we have right? Then we have Spotify, which failed, right? We can see that we mentioned Spotify on this day. And then, of course, with the market, Spotify just went above that 21 EMA, closed below it the next day, and now it just continues to move lower. As you can see, the squeeze continues to point lower, and we are not getting any momentum in my indicators. So that one failed. And then we have Lucid right here, right? We mentioned Lucid. When Lucid was moving above this 1 ATR level, we did get a pop the next day into this pivot, and now we got to move into the 21 EMA. My indicator continues to point higher, and I also have bullish momentum. So there's a high probability of Lucid moving higher. However, if the market decides to continue to sell, as most of the time, all boats follow the tide, right? So if the market continues to sell, there's a high probability that Lucid is just going to fail and move lower, continue to base before moving higher. So take that into consideration as well. So those are the setups that we talked last week. And now let's just move into some of the ideas that I have for you for the coming week. I actually have three bearish ideas, right? I have first of all, I have an idea for the YM. You can trade the DIA here, right? It's basically the same thing. You can trade the DIA contracts, DIA stock, or you can trade the YM futures contracts. And the reason that I'm pointing this idea to you, right, is because we have an active sell signal, we have a squeeze that is pointing lower, and we have the transition from bullish momentum into neutral momentum, and we have a close below this 21 EMA, and we also have the bearish signal, right? We are about to get the bearish cross between the 8 and the 21 EMA. So as we're looking here, the there's a as soon as we take out this low here, and I think there's a high probability of the YM testing this low right here. So I don't think there's a reason to buy the bottom, to buy the dip in the YM, as my indicators are telling me that there's a high probability of further downside. And we can see that we had the same signal right here, right? We have the squeeze moving lower, we have the transition from bullish momentum into neutral momentum. We had an active sell signal, and then we got the couple closes below the 21 EMA. We got the bearish cross, and then we got the move lower. So pretty similar action here, right? So there's a high probability for this to continue to move lower. And then if we move here, right, I have AMD as well, right? And as you can see, AMD, right, we lost the 50 DMA, and now price is getting rejected at a decline in 21 EMA, right? We have bearish momentum, we have a squeeze that is pointing lower, but of course, take into consideration that we have earnings, and sometimes the stocks tend to rally into earnings. But of course, my indicators are telling me that there's a high probability that AMD will test this level right here, and is already around a level in which you can start to add some risk, right? You can use this 21 as your entry point, use this 2 ATR as your target, and as always use the plus 1 ATR or this 50 DMA as your stop, and that will give you a nice 2-to-1 risk reward, and that is looking really interesting in AMD. And then finally moving into NVIDIA, right? Pretty similar, right? Kind of the same action, right? NVIDIA came close below that 50 DMA, and now it's failing at the 21 EMA. And of course, you can see that we continue to have bearish momentum. We continue to have a squeeze that is pointing lower. And I think there's a high probability that NVIDIA will rally into this declining 8 exponential moving average. And I think there's a high probability that NVIDIA is going to get rejected at those levels, take out this low, and perhaps make a test of this 3 ATR move to the downside. As always, try to get your position somewhere as close as this, as close at the 80 EMA or 21 EMA, so you can use this 1 ATR as your stop, and you can use 2 or 3 ATR as your targets, that giving you a nice 2 to 1 or perhaps even 3 to 1 risk reward for your position. So that's all I have for you guys. This continued to be a very choppy market. If you don't feel comfortable playing the short side, remain in cash, wait for better conditions. But as always, the setups that usually work in my system to the upside, in which I just look for momentum and a squeeze, usually work properly to the downside as well. So keep these ideas in mind, and if you have any other idea, please feel free to share. And with that, guys, have a good one and good luck this week.